So today we are going to start on section 7.2. It's going to be a two-part type of situation. So we'll call this part 1. 7.2 really deals with getting to know different pieces of what we call angles of rotation. Technically, I think that the title of it is Angles and the Unit Circle. So we're going to bring in a concept of unit circle here eventually. But today we're going to talk about different angles on the coordinate plane and how we draw angles on the coordinate plane. We're going to talk about what we call coterminal angles. We're going to talk about quadrants. We're going to talk about positive and negative angles, and just a bunch of different things within the coordinate plane. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to kind of get some terminology taken care of. So we've got our coordinate plane, and this is really nothing new to you. You've seen the coordinate plane before. You've seen the coordinate plane before. Just a couple things to remember with the coordinate plane. Remember when we talk about quadrants. We start in the upper right-hand corner. That's quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. Okay, so those are the different quadrants. It starts in the upper right-hand corner and it goes around it counterclockwise. A couple other things, because we're going to be talking about what we call degrees and radians with the coordinate plane. You can see, obviously, a right angle is created right there. So we say if you rotate a quarter of the way around it, you've gone 90 degrees. 90 and 90 is 180, so that's a 180-degree rotation. And it's 90 degrees after each passing. So 270 and 360 degrees. And that's kind of if we rotate in kind of that counterclockwise and follow the quadrants. We call that a positive angle of rotation. We're rotating in a positive direction. You can rotate in a negative direction as well. So if we go, instead of going counterclockwise, which is positive, and we want to go negative, we can also say that this down here is negative 90 degrees. This is negative 180 degrees. This is negative 270 and negative 360 degrees. Okay, so you can have positive and negative angles depending on which direction you're going. If you're going counterclockwise, it's a positive angle. If you're going clockwise, it's a negative angle. Well, when you create an angle on the coordinate plane, we create angles from what we call standard position. In a standard position angle, one of your sides, which we call the initial side, your initial side is going to be on the x-axis. So we call this the initial side if we're going to create an angle. Then that angle rotates either positively or negatively. And if it's going to rotate positively, we just kind of draw this little arc and show that it's rotating around the origin that many degrees, whatever that many degrees is. And then it kind of ends. And we can create a second side of that angle. So we've got an initial side where it starts. It opens up from the origin, and then it stops after a given degree. And we call this the terminal side. Okay. Terminal side essentially means where you end. Why all those extra lines got thrown in there, I really don't know. So we've got this terminal side in there. We've got a bunch of stuff that popped in that who knows why it did it. Okay. And terminal means where you end, so we call that the terminal side. So we've got this quadrant in here. Quadrant starts in the upper right-hand corner, goes counterclockwise, which we say is in the positive direction. It's 360 degrees around it, 90 at each piece. If you go clockwise, it's negative, and so on and so forth. We have an initial side, that's our x-axis. We've got a certain angle it rotates, and it comes to what we call this terminal side. And one of the first things we want to be able to do today is we want to be able to draw angles from standard position. Okay, so we could say that this angle is probably somewhere in the 120 degree range. What the heck's going on here all of a sudden? That angle is somewhere in the 120 degree range. I've rotated up 90. I've gone past 90 a little bit. And we can say, oh, maybe it's 120 degrees. So that's one of the first things we want to be able to do today is we want to be able to take these and we want to be able to draw certain measures of angles. So directions here say draw an angle with a given measure in standard position and state the quadrant. So the first one says we're going to draw a 205 degree angle. So when we're drawing angles, they always start in standard position. So it's always going to start on the x-axis. This is going in the positive direction, positive 205. So we're going to start our rotation going this way, and I just count. There's 90, there's 180. It's a little ways past that. It's somewhere right in there.
So is that it?
That's it. That's the first part. I've drawn the angle with the given measure in standard position. Now we just have to tell what quadrant it's in. Yeah.
All right, so like the X right there, that's 360, right?
All the way around it is 360,
Yep.
yes.
And then on the above, that's where the starting point of 1 degree is.
1 degree would be like right here, yeah.
Yep.
Yep, and then we just go, yep, in that positive direction. So what quadrant is this in? 3. That's in the third quadrant down there. For the second one says draw an angle in the given measure in standard position, state the quadrant, for a negative angle. So now we're going to do the negative 140. It's still going to start in standard position, so it's going to start along that x-axis. Now it's going in the negative direction. So we go clockwise, there's 90, so that's negative 90. If I go to the next one, it's negative 180, so it's somewhere in between there is where this one's going to fall. And again, it's in the third quadrant. Okay? And that's all you're asked to do with these. Okay? You're asked to draw them and state what quadrant that they're in. Okay? I should go ahead and do number 4. So again, we start in standard position. It's negative, so that means we're going clockwise. There's 90, there's 180, there's negative 270. If I go all the way, it's negative 360, so it's not quite there. So something like that. And then it is in quadrant 1. So again, when you're drawing these, make sure every single one's 90 and just count 90, 180, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Now, they can go over 360 degrees. We can say it has an angle of rotation of 790. You know, you hear skiers in the Winter Olympics or skateboarders, they're doing probably not 790s, but they're doing 720s and they're doing 1440s and all of these different types of things. They're just rotating around that center a certain number of times. So if we're going to do a 790 degree angle, we just kind of start and just start counting. There's 90, there's 180, 270, 360, 450, 540, 630, 720. So I need 70 more, right? So that's not quite 90 more. So it's right there. And you just need to draw the little loops to show that you're doing what you need to do. Again, make sure you're showing them going the counterclockwise direction because this was positive. Can we draw them? Yeah, it's pretty easy. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to kind of put that together and then kind of use our thinker a little bit to find a positive and negative measure of each angle. So in these next examples, you're going to be given the terminal side. The terminal side is that blue line right there. And it wants us, instead of last time we had to say this is 720 degrees or whatever, it wants us to tell what that angle of rotation is, both positive and negative. So we got to kind of calculate those things based on kind of what we know. Kind of the nice thing to do is, because this is going in the positive direction, because it's going counterclockwise, it's not a bad idea just to throw the labels down there originally. Now, if you look at what we've got, it says this is 120. So that's this green line here. This right here is 120 degrees. So if we think about this, if I start here and I go all the way to there, I've gone 180 degrees, right?
So 180 minus 1.
So 180 minus 120 is going to give me my positive one, right? Which is,
60.
so I know this has a 60 degree positive angle. That's the positive one. But we also have to know the negative one. So we have to go in the other direction as well. So we have to figure out what this is. Well, if I go from here to here, I've gone negative 180, right?
Oh, 180 plus 120, right?
Plus negative 120. Yeah. Because I've got this additional 120 I have to add on to it to get to there. And that's negative 300. So there's my other answer. So those are my two answers. Negative 300 and 60. Okay, so you got to kind of use a little logic when you're doing these problems. Think about, okay, what do I have to add? What do I have to subtract? How can I go about doing these? So let's look at number 8. So number 8, we've got that red angle that we're looking for. There's our terminal side. They give us this 150 degrees. Well, again, I'm kind of thinking about it just like I did the last one. I'm going to start with the negative one because that's what they started with. So if I go all the way around there, that's negative 180. And I've gone 150. That's 150 from there to there. So what's left?
30.
30, right? So that's negative 30 degrees. Negative 180 minus 150. Or plus 150, whatever. So that's my negative one. Now we have to think about the positive one. So the positive one is going to be 180 plus.
Oh, plus 150.
Yeah. So 180 plus 150 is 330.
That's it.
What do you notice about those two things and these two things?
They all add up.
They add up to what?
30.
360 degrees. The absolute values of them add up to 360 degrees. So anytime you're doing these problems in here, just you can double check just to make sure that it adds up to 360 degrees. The absolute values of them should add up to 360 degrees. Okay. Go ahead, give number 9 a shot. I'll give you a few seconds, see if you can figure out number 9. And then we've got really one last thing to talk about. So you should have got negative 130. I just go 90, negative 90 plus another 40. That's negative 130. So negative 90 plus negative 40. That's how I got the negative 130. The 230, these two things have to add up to 90 degrees, right? So 180 plus 50 is how I got the 230. Fair enough?
Wait, hold on. You went too fast. 40 degrees, and then from 360, negative 260, all the way down to 40 degrees, that would be about 130 degrees.
There you go. Yeah.
I get how you got the negative 130, but can you go over how you got the other one?
Yep. So we know that's 180, right? Okay, so the way I thought about it was these two numbers right here, they have to add up to 90, right? Because from here to here is 90 degrees. So 50 plus 40 is 90. So I put that 50 there. So then I just did 180, which was to there, plus another 50 to get the 250.
That was cool.
230. That's just the way I did it in my head. There's other ways to do it.
Let's see. So
You could have gone 360 minus 130.
How did you get the 50? How did that?
Because what do these two have to add up to?
90.
90 degrees, right?
Oh, and then,
And I know this
Oh,
one's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
40. So 40 plus 50 is 90. That's where I got it. This angle is going to come important here tomorrow.
So each of those angles right there are 90 degrees,
Yes,
which is net. So 4 90 degrees, which equals to 360.
correct.
And if you do 2, it'll be 180. And
Correct.
if you do 3/4, that would be about,
270.
yeah.
Yes. There you go. So last thing we have to talk about is what we call coterminal angles. Yes. So let's say that we have a 75-degree angle. And I want to find a positive and negative coterminal angle to that. Don't have to draw them. Just have to list a positive angle and a negative angle that's coterminal to 75 degrees. So all you're going to do is add 360 and subtract 360 from 75. So 75 plus 360 is 435. 75 minus 360 is negative 285. Those are your coterminal angles. One's positive and one's negative. And you're done. There's nothing left to do with it.
Okay.
If you have a negative 170-degree angle, it's negative 170 plus 360 and negative 170 minus 360. You'll have what you need. In the end, you have to have one that's positive and you have to have one that's negative. So negative 170 plus 360 is 190. Negative 170 minus 360 is negative 530. And all three of those angles have the same terminal side. If you drew them, they'd end at the same spot. Now, what if we have a negative 480-degree angle and we want to find both a positive and negative coterminal angle to that? Well, if I go negative 480 plus 360, negative 480 plus 360 would be negative 120. Do I have a positive one yet? No, I've got a negative one. But now if I take negative 120 and add 360 to it,
Okay, that would be, yeah.
that'd be 240, right? Now I'm where I need to be. Now I've got both a positive and negative. There's no reason to subtract 360 on this one.
Wait, that's it.
And you're done. Hey, get to a positive one, just keep adding 360 to it. Or if you're at something that's greater than 360, just keep subtracting 360 to it until you get to one. Just that rotation thing. That's 180 degrees around. Or 360 around it. Just keep moving around it as much as you possibly can. Okay? So that's what you have today. You've got to draw. You have to figure out what's the positive and negative angles. And then talks about coterminal angles. It's about 18 questions, I think, today. 16 questions today. You've got 20 minutes, roughly, to get it done. You should walk out of here today with it finished. Okay? So get it done so you don't have anything to worry about tonight. Or coterminal sides, coterminal angles. Let's get rid of this angles. I don't know why I put sides there, but I'll talk about coterminal angles. Coterminal angles. Coterminal angles are angles that have the same terminal side, meaning they end in the same exact spot, but they're two different angles. Okay, so what I have drawn up there right now is a 120 degree angle. And it was the first thing that we did. We want to be able to identify both a positive and negative coterminal angle to that. And again, what coterminal means is it means that they have the same terminal side. And so I have to find an angle that has the same measure as that terminal side. So if I went this direction from standard position, I want to be able to figure out what the measure of that angle is. Okay? Now, think about it. If we kind of do it visually, if I start facing this direction in standard position, and I rotate myself 120 degrees, I'm facing this way. Now, I have to rotate. But when I end, I got to be facing the same direction because I have to be facing the same I have to have the same terminal side. So what do I have to do?
240.
How much is it around the circle?
360.
360. So if I rotate 360 degrees, am I in the same spot? Yeah, I've got the same terminal spot then where I finished. So when you're finding coterminal angles, you're thinking about rotating around 360 degrees. So what you are going to do when you find coterminal sides is you're going to take your angle and add 360 degrees to it. That's spinning around in the positive direction to be facing the same place. So that's 480 degrees. So if I start here, I go around this thing 480 degrees, I'm in the same place. To get a negative one, instead of rotating counterclockwise, I'm going to rotate clockwise. So instead of adding 360, I'm going to subtract 360. If I go 120 minus 360, I'm at negative 240 degrees. So that pink line that I have up there is a negative 240 degree angle. And all three of these angles have the same terminal side. So they end in the same spot from standard position. That's what terminal means. Coterminal means the same ones. Yeah.
I thought the 120 is already solved.
But we're trying to find something different now. We're trying to find coterminal angles to them. Okay. All right. So let's look at a couple of examples.